others and even simplify it later for kids so that you can see how you can use that. It kind of probably sounds a bit technical, but I promise you it's going to be one of the easiest methods that you use. And then when you hear me explain it, you're going to say, I use that all the time, but I didn't know it was called a Likert scale. So we're going to talk about that, and you'll see that we're going to talk about it in those distinct ranges of 0 to 40, 40 to 60, and 60 to 100 for a good reason, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's going to move you out of self-care to stress tolerance skills. And by the time you're going to end this training, you're going to be very proficient in those. We're going to talk about using it for yourself, using it for other people, and then again, adapting it for Keiki and for adolescents. We're going to review just some quick online resources because I think it's so important for us to know what's available, where we can find additional resources, and what we can share. All right, if you want to move forward, Pedro. So this is one of the quotes that I absolutely love. It's from Maya Angelou, and she says, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others. And the reason I chose that quote is because that's really what I want us to walk away from today having, is this one hand that has a knowledge of self-care, of coping skills, of having practiced them, and feeling confident in where you can do, we can go to find more information or to practice more, but also this other hand that's going to tell you how to share that with other people in your life that you care about, your coworkers, your family, your friends. And so I thought it was just the perfect quote to kind of introduce us into coping skills. So next one, Pedro. Perfect. So let's do a quick review of self-care. Self-care is things that you do for yourself that makes you feel better. And the thing about self-care is it's highly individualistic. So what feels good to me might not feel good to someone else. So if I'm outside gardening, someone else might not enjoy that as much. So it's really important to think about the things in your life that are healthy, appropriate, and that give you quality time and quality care back. So one of the things I always want to talk about when we're talking about self-care is this idea of, let's start with your emotions. Let's start with the idea that however you're feeling is okay. So some people might have grown up with a message that said anger is not okay, or sadness isn't effective, or you should be happy all the time. That's just not realistic. Boiled down to its essence, an emotion is basically like a cascade of chemicals. Something very basic. It teaches us one of two things, which is, do I want to or do I want to move away from whatever it is? Well, if it makes me angry or upset, I'm probably going to move away from it. If it makes me happy and content, I'll probably move towards it. So at its core level, an emotion is information. So it's okay to say, however I feel is all right. The thing that we want to be mindful of is how you behave on that emotion. What I mean by that is if you feel angry, that's okay to feel. Lots of people feel justifiably upset about things. But how you choose to act it out, whether that is, taking a break and conversating with people later about how you felt, whether it's, getting upset and acting out physically, it's very clear that the emotion of anger isn't the part that's the issue, but it's the behavior you're choosing. So validate all your emotions and know that the feelings themselves are appropriate, they're normal. I had a lot of people asking me saying, is it okay that I feel this way? Or, maybe what I'm going through isn't as serious as what other people are going through. So is that okay to feel this upset? And I always tell them, like, you're having a normal reaction to an abnormal situation. We've never been through this before. There's no guidebook. We can look back on similar things that happened, but it's still not this thing. So it's okay to feel that way. Just make sure you're being smart about how you choose to deal with it. And that's why we're going to be talking about coping skills specifically, because that is how we're going to teach you how to be healthy and how you deal with it. Stay connected. So you hear us saying all the time, like physical distancing. Well, physical distancing isn't social disconnection. They're two complete opposite things. And the thing that we know is that when people go through disasters, when they go through any kind of upheaval of their life, any kind of one thing that's very protective is a support system, community engagement. Those are high protective factors, and that's what we keep saying. Please stay connected, because that's going to help you feel like you're part of a community and that community has your back. So really be mindful of making sure you're reaching out to people for yourself and for them. Don't overcheck. That's basically saying, it's okay to check every day, even maybe twice a day. Just don't spend hours getting more and more information, because some of it's inconsistent, some of it is very confusing, and some of it just makes you feel more anxious instead of more in control. So be careful how much you're checking, stay informed, just don't overcheck. Focus on the helpers, which is really just reframing things to the positive to say, yes, there are people who are not following quarantine. You see them. But there are also people who are going above and beyond to make masks, to help their neighbors, dropping off like food. They're doing more than, would be expected, and that's fine. If you're there, then that's great. Awesome. Thank you. If you are struggling and you're just trying to get through your day, that's fine too. A helper is someone who follows the safety guidelines, who does what they need to do, and all those are ways that we can advocate to help frontline workers. Check on the essential workers and the vulnerable in your circle. Yes, please do. And it doesn't have to be anything big. You can just reach out and say, hey, are you okay? How's your week going? Do you need anything? There's so many online resources, so it doesn't mean that it has to be you that gets that thing, but it could be you that connects them to the resource to let them know that it's available to them if they need it. Following a schedule. This one, I promise you, I am also guilty of. It is so easy to say, like, what day is it? What time is it? But making sure you're going to sleep and waking up at the same time as much as you can. The reality is we feel anxious and we feel stressed, and that's our baseline. As we move into the pandemic, the quarantine, getting information, your baseline is going to be more stressful than your regular baseline. And so following a schedule, as it's very important to do, but can be very difficult to do. So be gentle with yourself and just keep trying to reset that. If you're having a hard time falling asleep, or if you're having a hard time staying motivated during the day, just recognize that that's what's happening and then figure out what you can do to help move that. And we're going to talk about some things. Scheduling and self-care. If I don't schedule it in, I don't do it. I have lofty dreams of all the things I'm going to do. And the reality is that sometimes I go to do them and then they either don't feel like self-care, it just feels like more work, or I forget and I get busy with something else. So I've had to make it a really big priority to actually put it in my schedule. I remember when I went into quarantine, my first thought was, oh, I'm going to read so much classic literature. I love classic literature. And then when I sat down to read it, I felt very overwhelmed. I read the first page 5 times and I realized I don't have to come out of this having read and caught up on my lifetime reading list if that's not what feels good to me. So just also know that self-care doesn't mean you're being highly productive. It doesn't mean that you're meeting all those goals you thought you always would when you had all this free time. When you're this anxious and this stressed, some of those things do feel good and you're like, yeah, I like this. I like being able to do that. And then sometimes those things don't. And it's surprising sometimes to think that, oh, I thought this would be part of my self-care, and it actually doesn't feel that way. And that's okay. We adapt. Use social media responsibly. You'll hear me say things like make social media sandwiches. It's about picking sites that are reputable, that you know have good information. It's making sure that you're sharing things that are positive. And if you feel there's information that's really important for you to share, but maybe it's more challenging, that you do something that's positive at the beginning, you share that difficult information in the middle, and then you end with a light need. And that might be over a couple of days' time, but it's just to help create a balance, because I think sometimes we can experience social media as being very challenging, as being inundated with these stories that are very difficult, that bring up so much challenging emotion for us. So making sure we're putting out those funny memes, or those cute like animal rescue stories, or fun like little music things that people are doing now. I'm always amazed at my friends who are on TikTok. I'm like, it's beyond me, but they're doing some really cute things that just bring more of a light side to what's happening, because the reality is we need that. We need to be able to step away from what's happening and that feeling of anxiety and stress, and to have laughter back in our lives. And so some of how we do that is we create that balance online. Identifying online resources. You may see resources that aren't applicable to you, that you think, oh, I can't really use that, but go ahead and share it, because you never know who's looking for it, who hasn't seen that yet. It's a really easy way to kind of web out the support and the things that are available, even if it's not available to you. I've seen amazing programs and they haven't fit for me, but I absolutely share them, and other people have reached out and said, oh, thank you, I was able to get that thing, or call those people. So that's a really great way to also do self-care for yourself and self-care for others. The other thing that you can do is just kind of identify the fact that we need to invest in ourselves. This is a challenging time. It's something that we haven't gone through, most of us in our generation. I remember hearing about things like this from my grandparents and my great-grandparents, and how it changed their lives, these big historical events that happened. And I thought, I wonder what that would feel like. And here I am sitting here today going like, I'm in one right now, and I still kind of don't know what it feels like. It's day to day, it's minute by minute. It's just trying to find some kind of balance and foundation of all of this. And I do recognize that for myself and for everyone that I care about and everyone listening today, that it's so important to say, I need to invest in myself because this is a lot that's happening and I might not have the coping skills I need yet, but hopefully today you'll get some more. And that kind of brings us to our last point, use coping skills. By the end of today, I hope that you find one that you're like, oh, I love this one. And if not, don't worry. There are so many out there, and I always tell people, try 15, you'll find 3 that you like. Every once in a while, you'll try 10 and find 10 that you like. But just to keep looking and keep trying, because you're going to find some that are effective and some that are not effective. And it just comes down to temperament, personality, and what feels good. So we can go ahead and move ahead, Pedro. Thank you. So let's talk about this Likert scale. It's actually pretty simple. And the reason I wanted to talk about it is that I use it all the time when I work with people. I want to be able to ask them really concrete questions like, how are you doing today? And the easiest way that we can get that information is by knowing how people rate that for themselves. What I mean by that is if I ask you, are you feeling anxious today? But I don't know what your anxious looks like, I'm already in a place of disinformation and confusion. Because if you tell me on a scale of 0 to 100, 0 is absolutely no stress, 50 is you're feeling stressed, but you can still kind of manage it with a lot of effort, and then 100 is the most stress you've ever felt in your life. If I don't know what your most stress looks like, then I actually don't know what your 50 looks like either. I don't know what your coping skills are. But if we can keep that conversation going and you can let me know what those things look like, if you can share with me physically what happens when you're at a 50, then that's going to help me help you so much better than if I didn't know those things. And that's what the Likert scale is. It's a check-in for how someone is doing. And you can really apply it to all kinds of things. You can ask someone like, how are you doing with your anxiety? How are you doing with stress? How are you doing with feeling depressed? How often do you feel like you're having suicidal thoughts? A Likert scale can be used in all types of situations and simplified to be used with adolescents and kids. And we're going to talk about that in depth. So the next slide. Thank you. So let's talk about the actual ranges. So there's 3 that I wanted to make it as simple as possible. 3 ranges. So a 0 to a 40, 0 being absolutely no stress or distress. 0 means you feel actually pretty good. And so even if you were at a 10 and I asked you, how does a 10 feel? You might say, it doesn't feel like anything. You actually might say that even up until we got into the 30 to 40 range, because it's so low, it's not really catching, right? You're not like noticing it because it's so low level. But when we start to get around 40, you're going to start to go, I think I might be feeling stressed. There's an inclination and understanding that something could be happening that makes you feel distressed. When we get to the 40 to 60 range, I like to say, like, this is money. This is the place that we can do the most work, because you not only feel distressed, you know that you need something to help change that. And so this is where we get practice, we get to try new ones and apply them and see what works for us and doesn't work for us. Here in the 40 to 60 range, you absolutely feel the emotion. You might be feeling how it's working physiologically through your body. So for some people, for example, they might get a tightened jaw when they feel distressed. They might have gastrointestinal issues, so they're going to have stomach upset. They could get like a tension headache. They're going to have, or their muscles tighten, especially here in the neck and in the shoulders. They're going to start to notice, like, I feel stressed and anxious, or I'm having a hard time concentrating and paying attention. So in the 40 to 60 range, you know that you're stressed and you know that you're anxious, but you're now trying to figure out, what can I do about that? And now we're going to talk about a completely different range. So from 60 to 100 is very, very different. And here's why. Because once you get past 60, what happens to your brain, I'm going to try to make it really simple, because I can totally go off into brain anatomy and how things get processed through it. But in the simplest way to say it, when you get to 60 and get to above 60, especially if we're 70, 80, 90, what we're saying is that your nervous system is so activated that it no longer has the thoughts processing through the front of your brain, the frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex. What that means is there's not going to be an opportunity for you to practice new skills or to plan for something that you need. because this is a part of the brain that does that, that plans for it, that processes, that comes up with all these brilliant ideas and ways to deal with it. But when you're distressed, it's like the primal part of your brain kicks in. We often hear people say fight, flight, or freeze. And that's what we're talking about here, that your body's just responding to it and there's not a lot of thought that can go behind it. And so we need to short circuit that process that's happening so that you can get back that ability to concentrate, think, and like plan. And we're going to talk about how you do that, and there's some very clever ways. We can go ahead and move forward. So let's talk a little bit about 0 to 40 and the things you can do in the 0 to 40. So like I said, this is like low level to no levels of stress and anxiety. And because we know that we're in quarantine, we're in pandemic, some of us are essential workers, we know that our stress level it's not 0. It's not 0, and that's okay. But what we need to understand is that as we start to experience it and it becomes part of our awareness, we need to do a couple of things. So even in the day-to-day, if you're saying, okay, if someone were to ask me, like, where's my stress level on a range of 0 to 100, and I was to say it's at 30 to 40, I can feel it a little bit, but not so much that I feel like I need to do a lot of concrete things about it. Well, there's still some things that you can do. You can work on having just a healthy diet, go and have good sleep hygiene, which is going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time, making sure your room is dark and cool and comfortable, all the basic things that give us really great sleep. Make sure you get your daily exercise, your daily dose of sunshine, and then you can just practice deep breathing every once in a while. All those things fall into self-care, and they're all great ideas to do when you're in a 0 to 40. So if you want to move forward. So what we're going to do right now, because we talk a lot about deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, and oftentimes it's just completely interchangeable. So what I want to talk to you about is how you do diaphragmatic breathing. So the simplest way to do it is you put one hand on your chest and one hand right above your belly button. And when you breathe, make sure you're kind of sitting up nice and straight. And when you breathe, try to have the hand that's on your belly button move more than the hand that's on your chest. On a day-to-day, we typically breathe really shallow, which means we're not getting as much oxygen as we need. And what we need to make sure that we're doing is actually over-oxygenating. All that does is it calms our system just by getting more oxygen in. So if you're sitting down, make sure you're nice and comfortable. You can also do this laying down if you want to. Put one hand on your chest and one hand right above your belly button, and then just take a nice deep breath in. And then slowly exhale. Now, some of you are sitting there going, Dr. G, both of my hands moved, and that's okay. That's normal. What you're trying to do is really concentrate about where that breath is coming from. If this hand on your chest moved more than the hand above your belly button, then that does indicate that you're having deep breathing. You might have also been sitting there going, I've never thought this hard about breathing ever before. And it's true, we don't. But let's try it one more time. Hand on the chest, hand above the belly button, and take another deep breath. Slowly exhaling. Very good. The reality is I have to think about it too. Even though I know this, I practice it, I really have to think about it when I'm doing it, because you'll see me like initially go to the chest and do it, but really I need to be pulling from my diaphragm. That's why it's called diaphragmatic breathing, but it can also be called just deep breathing. If you're like, I got this, it's no problem, then I'm going to issue you a challenge. After you finish this training, I want you to try and see if you can adjust the pattern. So what you can do when you get really good at these breathing practices is purposely breathe shallow. So we could try a pattern if you'd like. Shallow twice here, then deep from the diaphragm, then exhale. Let's try it one more time. So that'd be 2 shallow from the chest, then 1 from the diaphragm. Then slowly exhale. What that's going to teach you is mindful breathing. It's going to teach you to be more conscious when you're stressed for how you get your oxygen in, how deep it's getting. And if you're pretty savvy about being able to do these exercises, you can create patterns for yourself. You can find free videos on YouTube of learning how to like flex between the two. but it's just a really easy way, and you can do them anywhere. You often know if I feel stressed, because I will be absolutely doing deep breathing. You can add aromatherapy into that if you find that to be relaxing. It's a simple mechanism that you can have anybody do, and with someone that you care about feeling stressed, you can literally just say, hey, take a deep breath with me, and then model it for them. And you can say, hey, can you put your hand here and here? Tell me which one's moving more. And it just quickly redirects them to get that deeper level of oxygen and to get that feeling of relaxation. So we can go ahead and move forward one. Perfect. This is the place I really love to talk about in depth. Sorry, it's the 40 to 60 range. The reason I like it so much is it's mild to moderate levels of anxiety and stress. You can feel that it's happening, but you can also start to use your concrete skills to figure out how to bring those levels down. So this, when we say coping skills, is absolutely the area that we're talking about. So we talked a little bit about aromatherapy, which is amazing. So one of the senses that you have that is most linked to memory, that's most linked to just emotion, we often think it's visual, but it's not. It's olfaction, it's breathing. If you think about right now, places that made you feel comforted, things that you really like, for some of us, it's coming home and it's the smell of fresh baked cookies. For some of us, it's the smell of lavender in the air. There's so many wonderful things, whether it's, you know, the smell of something that reminds you of someone, or a food, or a place that you've been, and those things are very emotional, very tied into memory. And by using aromatherapy to bring some of that up, it can just help you relax. Historically speaking, lavender and lemongrass, we still use those in a lot of different products in a lot of different places because they do have a relaxing effect. If you're feeling kind of low level energy, you can use orange and lemon and lime. Any kind of citrus helps you feel invigorated and refreshed. So you can use aromatherapy in different places, in different ways, to kind of counteract where you're at and where you want to be. Some people say, Dr. G, I don't have time to learn aromatherapy. I don't have time to grow my own garden and be an herbalist. Like, this is not realistic. And I say it's as easy as picking a body wash in a scent that you love. And if you feel like it needs to be something that relaxes you because you have trouble sleeping, go with the ones that are relaxing. If it's because you're having a hard time getting started in a day, pick something invigorating, and it's that simple. Just picking something and being very mindful about what you're picking and building it into your everyday can be helpful. We're going to also be talking about very specific things that you can do to kind of work within your nervous system. And the first one is going to be autogenic training. We're going to practice that in a minute. And so what that does is basically it uses your mind to relax your physical body. When we go into progressive muscle relaxation, it's going to use your body to relax your mind. And so I'm giving you two different ways into calming the nervous system, because I've heard people say, I love autogenic training, and I've heard other people say it didn't do anything. And I really want to make sure we have as many things that we can use as possible, because some people will like one or all or none. And so we want to have as many options as possible. Meditation, I love meditation. I think a lot of people who haven't done it feel maybe a little overwhelmed by the idea of it. It doesn't have to be a spiritual practice. It absolutely can involve things like a walking meditation, going outside and making sure that you're going slowly and you're being mindful about staying in the present, seeing what you're seeing, and enjoying just the flowers that are outside or the warmth in the air, and you're just in the moment. Fully in the moment. And it doesn't have to be something that's really difficult, because sometimes people tell me that the thought of having to learn a meditation practice is overwhelming, and I just let them know, if you have 5 minutes to just sit in the present, do a deep breathing exercise, and just look at something you really enjoy seeing, that's meditation. Also, we have visualization. So visualization is definitely for the more imaginative of us, because some people don't like it, and that's okay. But it's the idea of, and they have guided visualization, which I really love. If you want to be on a beach, in a Scottish castle somewhere, you can find all these free things on YouTube or paid for ones on Apple that have guided meditations, and that's just visualization. But at its simplest form, visualization is closing your eyes and imagining that you are, so we'll make it up, imagining you're in a dark forest, and the wind is whistling gently through the top of the trees, and the birds are singing very softly, and it just finished raining, so the ground is wet, but you're comfortable with it, and it's very relaxing. So visualization just pulls you out of what you're experiencing now and just helps you calm down. There's so many great ways to do that, including just going to a place that is one of your favorite places to go to and remembering what that was like. We can go ahead and move forward. Let's practice a little bit with autogenic training. Autogenic training, like I said, is using your mind to relax the body. And here's what happens. Remember we talked about fight, flight, or freeze. If you are distressed, your Neanderthal, excuse me for calling it that, but it's really what it is, your Neanderthal brain is going to kick in and it's going to say, hey, I need to survive. If a saber-toothed tiger is coming towards me, I probably shouldn't be deep breathing, right? It's probably not going to work at this level. So what my body's going to do is say you need to either freeze so they can't see you, or fight to make sure you're safe, or run to make sure you're not in that place anymore. What autogenic training does is it says, when fight, flight, or freeze happens, you're going to pull your blood into your torso because it's going to protect your vital organs. It's going to make your arms and legs lighter in case you want to run or in case you want to fight. Your body responds to stress with fight, flight, or freeze at high levels, the same as it would as if it was a saber-toothed tiger, maybe a little less intense. But if you're stressed at work, you still go into it. If you have that high level of stress, your body will always function and to get you into that fight, flight, or freeze mode when feeling very pulled into the torso back into the limbs. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get myself comfortable, but I want you, wherever you are, to get in a comfortable sitting position, feet flat on the floor. And then we're going to start with just a little bit of the deep breathing, right? Hand on the chest, hand above the belly button, and then just take one good deep breath in. Hold it for a second, and then slowly exhale. Perfect. If you're comfortable, this would be a good time to close your eyes. If you're not comfortable closing your eyes, you don't have to. But I just want you to listen to my voice and repeat to yourself what I am saying. So very slowly say, my breath is slow and steady. Again, my breath is slow and steady. One more time. My breath is slow and steady. Another deep breath in, holding for a second, and slowly exhale. Eyes still closed. My left arm is heavy and warm. Once more, my left arm is heavy and warm. Moving the concentration over to your right arm. Now saying to yourself, my right arm is heavy and warm. My right arm is heavy and warm. Once more, my right arm is heavy and warm. I'll take one more deep breath. Hold for a second and slowly breathe back out. Hear the sounds around you, and when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and orient back to the room. Give a good stretch. Perfect. Some of you are saying, I didn't feel anything. The actual autogenic exercise would take you through your hands, arms, your upper body, your stomach, your thighs, your legs. It would go through the whole system, and that would be an entire training. So I wanted you to get the experience of what that would feel like. How does it work? Well, basically what it is a little bit of self-hypnosis. The only way to make your left arm heavy and warm is for your body to redistribute the blood that has been stored in your torso back into your hand. Some people have said, I feel tingly or weird. And I'm like, yes, that is you getting circulation improvement in the hands. For some people, it's not as effective, and that's okay. I wanted you to know what it looks like and just to know that those types of scripts and videos are available to you. Some are free on YouTube, and there's some really great ones. I very much enjoy autogenic training, but it's using your brain to kind of short circuit the fight, flight, or freeze. And we're going to try one that does the opposite. So let's go ahead and move into the next slide. Perfect. We're going to talk about progressive muscle relaxation. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and I want you to think about them because I want to prove to you that there's so much information going on around you, and you are so intelligent. You get a lot of really scans it and decides whether or not for that. But not all of us are going to go swimming. So what you can do again, you can do the dive response. It's kind of like with diaphragmatic breathing. You can do the dive response around you that are going on progressive muscle relaxation, and your brain really can't memorize aromatherapy in the background. And I'm going to prove that to you by number of combinations of these skills to help you. But if you're on 60 to 100, you need to short circuit what has happened to your nervous system, and the easiest way to do that is to do the dive response, have on shoes or socks, move into diaphragmatic breathing. Who do, for some of us, when we right now you're feeling it and you are right, we become very thinking about that. And so it could be a good idea if that something tight is your shirt to work out and burn the energy off first, then you're now going to dive response. Then I think it's comfortable. Only you know how you respond. And last question, what is there baffling between your eyes? Just sitting down and just breathing at the get-go, it's not going to be effective. They're not going to be able to do that. Before I ask you some of the questions, you won't really have them wear out, have them do whatever they need to do. But the reality is, if your shoe weighs 20 pounds, you would know. The other thing that we want to talk about was restricting breathing. You would know that. And if you have something sticking out between the middle of your eyes, being in the moment, and the reason there's so much your brain doesn't in that none of this is because let me adapt and let me get rid of this excess information. We can't change it. Again, radical connection, right? We cannot change when we feel anxious and stressed. The future is unknowable. I know someone try my best to come up with plans to get everything to work. See that they're very good about their tired, and we do that in a different way. It's very unpredictable. But the more stressed and anxious, the only place I know that I can do work and have an immediate. Why is this important information? Well, I want you to think right now. How many of you take 10 minutes to deep breathe? And if I to feel it, 15 minutes to deep breathe next. The dive response. I know I get. I'm having a hard time starting my neck. Brings me how many of you feel it in your? I'm still in a better place than I would have been had I not. And what happens when you start to feel that? The day is where I do my work and forget that that's not the normal level of muscle tension. So that's the combining skill. It's being adapting until you forget how you can that you're literally sitting like this until someone comes by, or you can go to the next slide, or you do a nice relaxation exercise, and then you feel it. How are you going to use this for yourself? Progressive muscle relaxation is just let's be honest, release some of that. It can be very difficult sometimes to practice that a little bit. How are you feeling? Do progressive muscle relaxation for you or someone else? All right, is to start with. Okay. Even when you're not, so don't make it. If you have nails, don't make it so tight that you leave. Okay. It's make it nice, polite. We're going to hold especially if it's a company that you don't know very well. And then we're going to release it. What I want you to pay attention to, like one of those answers, that brief micro. But you actually need to know for yourself if your muscle will just relax. Some of us have. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to count, and that just means body tells. These body tells could be anything from the tightening of the jaw, your muscles getting tighter, you start to get that headache, having a hard time concentrating. We all have these little tells when we know we're starting to get stressed. For some of us, myself guilty, I get more controlled in how I do things. I want things to be more organized. Normally, free spirit, don't care, add in a bunch of anxiety, and I'm like, what are we doing? I need that written down, and I need that organized by alphabet, right? Know what your tells are, and if you're not sure, learn more about yourself so that you can experience when you are starting to get into the 40 to 60 range, definitely when you're starting to get to the 60 to 100 range. You should know what your body does differently in the 0 to 40, the 40 to 60, and the 60 to 100. Because even if emotionally it hasn't registered for you that you're feeling angry or you're feeling sad, If you go, but you know what, my head's been hurting or my stomach feels awful, it has for 2 days, that's a kind of slack for you to check in and say, am I distressed? Let me just double check, because I know those are signs of distress. Why your stomach? Because you don't need to digest your food if you're running from a saber-toothed tiger. Also, your immune system. You don't need to fight off a cold if you're running from a saber-toothed tiger. I just want you to run. So when you're distressed, your immune system goes down, and your gastrointestinal can get disrupted, and you can have some issues. So if those two things happen, just check in with yourself and make sure that it's not coming from anxiety or stress. Identify your own Likert range. What that means is know what your 0 looks like, know what your 40 and 60 looks like, know what your 80 and 100 looks like. Know that for yourself. Know what the concrete examples are for those things. That way you can kind of communicate that to other people, and you know what coping skills and distress tolerance skills to try. Use appropriate self-care or coping skills dependent upon where you think you are on the scale. And then if you still feel like you need a lot more support, just reach out for it. We all need a tribe, a community, a family. We need as many people as we can saying, I'm here for you, I can help you. And then when we do our own self-care, we can be there for other people, and we can say, hey, I'm having a good day, a good week. I can be there for you if you're struggling. And that's how we get through all of this together. And then again, like I said, if you're not sure, just learn more about yourself. So moving forward on the slides, I like to say that maybe I'm a little too self-interested, because I find it very fascinating to learn about myself. So what are some of the things that you can learn about yourself? Figure out, how do you communicate? How do you communicate when you're happy, and how do you communicate differently when you're stressed? Just start to notice those things, because that could be a tell in and of itself. What creates stress in your life? That's really good to know. What do you do that makes you feel better? What are your personal strengths? Like, what are you really good at that you can use when you're feeling distressed? Where's your growth edge? I know where mine are, and I'm constantly trying to make those better and stretch them out for me, because we're like gardens. We just need to keep growing, right? And we can take breaks when we need to. Knowing how you cope with specific emotions. Some people are better with certain emotions. Like some people say, well, I can be angry and communicate and tell you how I feel. And others say, I just cry. I just get angry and I cry, and that's what happens. I'm not as good with that one. And those are fine. Those are okay. We learn that as we grow up from the people that we're around, from our personality and our temperament. And so you just know how you deal with the emotions. And if you want to deal with them differently, then figure that out. Learn some of these coping skills. Reach out to people. Some people say, I don't need a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist because, I'm doing well and all these things. And I tell them, sometimes people just come to see me to learn skills, really. That simple. It's very short. They're like, I want to learn these coping skills, and it can be used in that way. Also, who's in your support system? I say before you get to the 60 to 100 mark, you should have a list, a concrete list of who you call to distract you, that makes you happy when you talk to them, and those who are like, I can call them and tell them exactly what's happening in detail, and I know this will be there with me and sit with me through it. There's different kinds of support when you're trying to communicate what's happening. Some you'll go into detail, some you just want to not think about it for the day, just have a fun conversation. Know who those people are, program them into your phone, program crisis lines into your phone so you don't have to think about it if you end up in a 60 to 100 situation. So moving forward, how do we use this for other people? So it's very easy to do. You can just shorten it, simplify it, and you can even change the Likert to be 0 to 10. You could say on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being like, I feel great, and 10 being, I feel really overwhelmed, I can't deal with this. Where are you? I'm having a hard time figuring that out. You can really use that with the people in your life. And at first they'll be like, what? And then they can grab onto it and be like, oh, okay, well, my 5 looks like this, and my 0's here, my 10's here. I think I'm like a 7. It actually helps them get more concrete about what they need and how to figure that out. But part of what we're looking for are those warning signs. If I'm concerned about someone, I'm assuming I'm seeing something that makes me feel uncomfortable or unsure. Some of the warning signs is that it's disrupting their ability to get through their day, do the daily activities like hygiene, eating, sleeping, that they're isolating, maybe not spending as much time connecting with other people, that their mood is worsening, or I hear language that they're using that makes me think they might be unsafe. If you are experiencing that yourself or with someone that you care about, it's so important to ask yourself or ask someone else the question. You can say, are you feeling suicidal? Are you having suicidal thoughts? It will not increase their likelihood or put the seed into their mind about it if it wasn't there before. That is not what we see across the board in terms of research. We know from having done this for decades that instead of it making them feel uncomfortable or introducing an idea to them that they didn't have before, actually what it's doing is letting them know, I can talk about this and be supportive of you, and it can be a subject that we can talk about without me feeling overwhelmed. A lot of people worry if I talk to my best friend, then she's going to feel that instead of me. I talk to my partner, then they're going to be worried and they won't be able to handle it. And the reality is we have amazing people who are still offering crisis services, including a crisis line, the National Suicide Hotline, who are still there for us, who are still willing to come in and help us in difficult situations, even though we're in quarantine or we're in pandemic. They are available, but also just to be able to say, even if the answer I get back when I ask that question is yes, I want that answer so I can help them get to where they need to be. And if that is an immediate issue and they're telling me, yes, it's happening right now, we will drive to the emergency room because I want you here the next day. Give them the crisis resources if you're worried about them. Make sure also they have them in their phone and just make sure they have the support that they need. So moving forward. Thank you. So how do we use these skills for keikis? We just simplify them. And again, we do the Likert scale of 0 to 10. For kids, you want to give them really concrete examples. So 0, I'm so happy. 5, I'm not so sure I feel so happy. 10, I'm very unhappy. If there's little bitties, that's kind of how you want to do it. You can even do different smiley faces so that they have 3 options they can just point at for you. You can even do the stoplight method, which is green means go and everything is great. Yellow means not so sure, I need to check in. And then red is stop, I need to do some skills, right? And then you can quickly say, where's your stoplight? Where's your light at? And they can tell you the color, and it just makes it a lot easier for the little ones. Using that Likert scale, we're going to simplify the coping skills. So we did all this stuff talking about diaphragmatic breathing, but I want you to understand that you can use those skills with your little bitties. As little as they get. I've used coping skills with a 2 to 3-year-old, and she was so cute in how she used them. But what we do is instead of saying, let's do diaphragmatic breathing, put your hand here, your hand here, they're not going to be. What you can do is say, let's go blow some bubbles. Breathe in deep. Make it the biggest bubble that you can, because that and they don't like an emotional toolbox for them. What you say is, what do you need? Do you need something tactile, soft blanket? Do you need comforting? Do you need something that smells good? So that's some kind of those now. You just need to do like jumping jacks to burn out that extra energy, and then just check in with them. All those things work. We have on our page these free coloring sheets that you can download, and they have things like meow breathing. This one I thought was hilarious, but basically you just take a deep breath in and then say, oh, yeah. I think I lost you for a second. We're just going to keep moving forward. For the meow breath, what you're going to do is just take a deep breath in and really just saying meow for as long as they can. They love making noise, and they love making animal noises. So that's a simple one. And if you're wanting them to just begin to learn meditation or yoga or just sitting in quiet, you can have them practice different stances like, show me stretch like a cat, show me sit like a frog. What would a mountain do if they were to be sitting here, and what would a mountain think? And so you can have them start to do some of these present focus activities without them even knowing that's what they're doing. And if you have those squirmy little ones like we all do, then you would basically say, let's do a wiggle dance. And the wiggle dance is just wiggling it all out as much as you can to burn off some of that excess energy before you start to do the dive response. And I find kids like the dive response, especially if you do just a little bit of aromatherapy with it. They like to have that. So we can move forward one slide. Perfect. Now, using these skills for teens. So we have it for adults and we have it for our little bitties. How do we adapt it for teens? This is kind of getting into the moderate level. We really want our teenagers to practice these skills so they can carry into adulthood and be highly effective in using them. We know emotional intelligence is one of the biggest factors for success, and I want that for all our teenagers. Examples of what their 0, their 40, their 60, their 80, and their 10 looks like. If they need to map that out and actually write it down, great, let them do that. Because then you can say, are you at a 60? No, I'm blah, blah, blah. And you can say, ooh, this kind of looks more like that one you told me about that was an 80. And then they can kind of work through it themselves. They have more complex thinking, and you can have a conversation around that. You can have them build and practice self-care. When I work with teenagers, I would say, give me your fast 5. Your fast 5 is the 5 things that you have readily available to you at all times that makes you feel better, whether it's throwing towels into the dryer so they're nice and warm and you go take a good cooling shower, your favorite music that you've got on a playlist and it's ready to go if you need it, or your favorite perfume, whatever those things are, your favorite music, your favorite movies, books, all the things that are comforting to you, they should know their fast 5 and they always have those things available. We want them to build and practice self-care because we want them to know when I feel sad, I do this. When I feel angry, I do this, because those can be very different things. And they have a concrete plan. If you have a teenager who happens to suffer with pre-existing mental health issues, it's better to write it down so that they know I call these people if I'm unsafe. I call these people if I feel anxious or distressed. I need to feel more support. I call these people, and you have several down. You already have the phone numbers listed, phone numbers in their phone. Make sure they have their providers' information. I'm a huge component of making sure that teens are well informed about their own care and have the comfort to contact their providers too. So next slide. That's the team support plan. So when I say make it concrete, what I really am saying is make sure it's written down, who they're going to talk that helps them feel better, who they talk to about the specifics of their stress, their providers in their phone, crisis resources, just take their phone and put it in there for them. Make sure that they're in there so they know. And then they know what each one does. There are text options, call options, different ways if they're more comfortable doing one or the other. And then kind of a really great question is, what gives their life meaning? What makes you happy? That's a big sign if they're like, I don't know. I don't know what makes me happy. That's already telling you their mood's being impacted. And then ask them what helps you feel better. If they don't know, that's where you start doing the work. Let's find some things that make you feel better. So moving forward one. Like I said, there are some resources that are available that are for crisis specifically. These are our crisis resources that we have. The first number is for Oahu. The second one's for our neighbor islands. We have the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. We have the Domestic Violence Action Center, wanting to make sure that those are available. Not every shelter in place is a safe space, and we want to make sure that people know those services are absolutely still available if you need them. The Trevor Hotline is for LGBTIQ youth. They can call 24/7 if they feel like they need more support or assistance. These numbers are also available on our website, which is mentalhealthhawaii.org. You can go forward one. So that just kind of gives you a picture of where you'll go when you go to our website. Just click that and it will connect you to online resources, and we have them for a lot of other things as well. So for housing, for food supplies, any other things that you might need to get connected to, you can call or you can check out that online. So moving forward again. So it's not all serious. We do have some things on social media that you might be interested in. You can go to our Facebook page where we have an MHA Maui group where all the new information and updates for Maui are there, and the trainings that happen there are listed specifically. We have our Busy Bees. Please check out our Facebook Busy Bees page. It is for Keiki. It has fun activities and a lot of things around gardening and bees and just some really cool like jokes and people sharing their different things that they've made, their favorite projects. And we have a book club. So if you're into reading, let us know. Let us know what you're reading. We'd love for you to join us in those groups. So moving forward one. Perfect. So then this is our information. If you're interested in having questions for me after this, it comes up later, you can email me through our website. You can go to mentalhealthhawaii.org. They have screeners for anxiety, depression, for any number of things if you're worried that maybe your experience of it is higher than normal, and it will give you resources after you take the screener and your results. This is our information. We are still working remotely, so you can call us at those two numbers. The first one is for Oahu, and the second one is for Maui County. If you're from a different neighbor island than that, please call us at Oahu. We are absolutely available. Thank you so much for taking this time out on your Friday. I know that it's been very stressful for us all, and I just want you to know we have hope that it's going to get better, and we can radically accept that we're all in this together, but we're all going to come out of it together too. So that's super awesome. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Gass. That was excellent and touched on so many different issues. I really loved the practice session. I might need a personal practice session later because I somehow dropped off the call while you were doing one of them. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed that. Do you have a few minutes to respond to questions? Dr. Gass?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Do you have a few minutes to respond to questions?
Absolutely.
Folks, you could either put your questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask the question directly to Dr. Gass.
This is Pedro. I'll go ahead and start. Thank you, Dr. Gass. You're getting a lot of comments in the chats about how useful the information was, and thank you. We've certainly been through a lot of self-help types of information in the past, but this is the first one that I've seen that actually goes through and helping us identify ways to be able to do it ourselves rather than just thinking about it. So thank you for that. It was a really excellent presentation. My question is, when people are facing, what might be considered a panic attack or something of that sort, whether it's for themselves or for somebody else, do you have any particular advice of what might be helpful for people to do, in the first 5 or 6 minutes when they are identifying that they're having, a lot of centralized anxiety at one point?
Yeah, so if you're specifically experiencing a panic attack, I want to be really clear that we want to make sure that you feel safe. A lot of people will hyperventilate when they're having a panic attack. So sitting down, if it's happening to you, please find some place that's away from a crowd, because that just feels really overwhelming when other people come into your space and are trying to talk to you like, are you okay? What's happening? So making sure that you're sitting down, that you're away from a crowd, that you're in a place where you feel safe, and that you find someone who you do feel comfortable with being with you. If this is happening to someone else that you're with, making sure also that you make sure they have the same thing, sitting down, that they're away from a crowd, that they have space to be able to do what they need to do, but also, that they start to pace the breathing. So when we talk about diaphragmatic breathing, you wouldn't start with them saying follow my breathing and just go because they're not there. They're going to be quicker and more agitated. And so you're going to find that level and then go down a notch. So if they're breathing quickly, you say, breathe with me. And after a couple of those, now let's slow it down. Now one more time. We match them lower, get it slower. That's really important, because otherwise it feels so disconnected from their experience that you're slow breathing over there feeling relaxed and they're hyperventilating. It does not match. Understand that some people have this, if it's their first one, this kind of social construct that they should have some type of bag to breathe into. It doesn't help. It doesn't give you more oxygen. But if someone's begging me for a brown bag, I'm not going to spend the next 5 minutes giving them psychoeducation on how it depletes oxygen. I'm going to poke a hole in the bottom and just give it to them and say, okay, because it makes them feel better, right? And that's fine. Later, I'll talk to them about like maybe that's not so effective, but making sure they're safe, making sure we can get that breathing leveled off, but also just validating, I know this feels really scary. I know this is very overwhelming for you. I'm here for you. Let's just go ahead and see if we can slow our breathing. And then when it gets slow, you can use dive response then. You can use grounding, and grounding is just a sensory check-in to say, tell me 3 things that you see. Tell me 2 things that you hear. Tell me 1 thing that you smell. And it just distracts them enough to do what they need to do. But I always say, like, I'm not that kind of doctor. So if I'm concerned that someone is experiencing those types of symptoms and they're unable to kind of bring that down, I'm going to start to ask them, like, has this ever happened before? Do you have a history of panic attacks? Do you have a history of heart-related issues? I'm never going to exclude that it could be a medical issue instead.
Great question. Anybody else? Questions?
There's another question. There's a question. There's a question on if we can get a copy of the PowerPoint or recording, as this was great information.
Yep. We
Yeah.
will make that available through PDF. About the recording, I'm not sure.
The recording, we'll do our best. I did mention earlier I had some technical difficulties, so I'm not sure how it's going to come out. It's been recording for the last 30 minutes or so. So we'll do our very best to get something up in the next day or 2.
Comfortable with the recording. I am totally into like going back in and creating a webinar separate that has information in it, and then making that available for the Public Health Association again, because of some of the issues we have.
There's another question. Can autogenic training somewhat work if in the shower running water over your face?
So that's probably more the dive response, is the activation with the water over the face. The autogenic training would be the, tell yourself my left arm is heavy and warm. I do think you get a little bit of that if you like to take a warm shower, take a warm bath, that you can still kind of do that internal like messaging to yourself to try to get it to flow back out, but that can be helpful, yeah.
And next question is, what are tips or tools for interactions with naysayers, people who don't put stock in meditation, breathing, or essential oils?
So I always like to, for naysayers specifically, I always like to kind of come from a sciencey background with it, because I feel like they're coming from like a new age kind of like, oh yeah, that's gonna, but I come from like a different approach with them, I think, because we tend to see that these are new tools. We've been using breathing to relax ourselves since we were created. That's just a natural part. And to explain to them, it's not breathing for the sake of like opening a chakra or moving into a different state. I'm breathing because I need more oxygen to go to my brain. Just make it very fun. With aromatherapy, I just say, your memory is linked highly to the sense of smell. And if you can use smell to make, that memory of happy things pop up, then why not do that? If you can walk in and you like the smell of chocolate chip cookies, get a mix of aromatherapy that smells like chocolate chip cookies. Like that just makes you happy. Like it doesn't have to be the very basic things that we necessarily wouldn't be comfortable with. But yeah, just making it a little bit more grounded for them. If it's about meditation, prayer is meditation, walking can be a meditation. You can just say, hey, do you want to walk with me? Let's see what we can see out in nature. That simple. Just reframe.
Here's another question. When it comes to journaling, do you have any recommendations on if there should be some sort of plan or format?
I do. So I will say this, if you are someone who has a pre-existing history with mental health, and that could be someone who experienced complex trauma, who is diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, or has, an existing history of depression or suicidality, Journaling is an amazing, amazing tool. I am so passionate about it, but I also think that you have to be very careful about not going too deep. And what I mean by that is when we start to process things on the language level, we can also pull in emotion. It's connected and they get very, very intense. And so I would hate for someone to go in to think I'm going to process through this really intense thing that happens, and instead of it pulling them up, it pulls them down without anyone around being able to support them and walk them through it. I think journaling, if you're working through those really intense things like trauma, should be done with the support of, you know, you can go to an art therapist, you can go to a psychiatrist, psychologist, they can all help you facilitate that. But if it is something that is more kind of 40 to 60, 0 to 40 level in distress that you're writing about, then yes, it's fine to kind of just write about how you're feeling. There's some really cool places you can go for journal prompts on different things, to get you thinking about different things. There's those kind of journals that get you through the year and kind of have their own prompts built in. All those things are great. If you're working with anything that puts you in a 60 to 100 space, then that be careful about, because you're tapping into things that could be detrimental to you without the support.
Anything else? Anybody else have any questions? Okay. If not, I want to thank Dr. Mesquita Gas again for her time today, and I apologize for some of the technical difficulties. Seemed like we had it right at the beginning, and then I don't know what happened, but I also want to thank Mental Health America of Hawaii, your organization, for partnering with Hawaii Public Health Association and making this a possibility, and working with us on this, setting this up. And University of Hawaii Cancer Center for extending use of the Zoom. It allowed us to bring on over 100 folks, nearly 200 people registered for the meeting today. So I want to thank the University of Hawaii Cancer Center for extending that. So thank you all. Happy Lay Day to everybody. Enjoy the day, get outside, smell the flowers. And join us again. I hope that this won't be our last offering. We have been trying to step up our offerings online since our opportunities to gather in person are quite limited now, but keep on keeping on. We've had some excellent progress overall for the state, and I think we can be quite proud of the work that everybody is doing to respond to COVID-19. So thank you all. Have a great Friday and a great Lay Day. Aloha.
Thank you, Pedro.
Thank you, Pedro, for chipping in there.
Thank you.